It came from up ahead. The sound of a man singing. If a monster had appeared in that moment, I'd have died. The clear, penetrating timbre of it left me defenseless. I was simply transported to another place entirely. A place bathed in light, the sort seen only in paintings.
Oh, apologies.
Upon noticing me, the man ceased his performance. I realized he was no common man. I braced for combat and calmly asked his identity. He simply gave his name, Kalem. Countering my clear hostility with a smile, he walked away. I was compelled to follow after him. I felt I had no choice. And why? Because that was the name of the singer of legend. Kalem. The name of the singer of legend. Former member of Avalon. Kalem's song stoked allies' morale and tamed the fiercest fiends in turn. More than music, it was a unique form of magic. But Kalem had disappeared years ago and been unheard of since. Exactly why, no one knew. Recently, a new rumor surfaced, claiming Kalem had joined Grimm. The truth behind that claim stood before me now. Grimm's Kalem was a fake. But how did I know? It was plain to see. The Kalem of legend was a woman, Avalon's diva. When word arose that she'd joined Grimm, they'd flown into a panic. Her songs held the power to control the listener's mind. If that power lay in the hands of Avalon's opponents now, that was dire news indeed.
Might a fella ask why you're following me?
I knew for certain he was an imposter inhabiting the name. But somehow I couldn't ignore him. Had I lost my senses? His voice still hung in my ears. I asked this so-called Kalem the reason for his travels.
Why, to finish my songs, of course.
What I'd heard when we met was but a fragment, a work in progress. He claimed it was a song about the unfairness of the world. I was the first to hear even a verse of it. I opted for the direct approach and asked him, "Are you the real Kalem?" By way of response, he began to sing. As if that were answer enough. He wasn't even a woman. From anyone's perspective, he was a fake. But his voice washed all doubt, all logic away. The moment it reached my ears, my heart was stolen. And I loved it. I needed it. Kalems' legends made wild claims that hearts were hers to control. Well, the man before me now couldn't possibly be her. But the effects of his song were just as the legend said. I was sure I'd gladly follow any order given to me in that state. I was under his spell as soon as the first notes entered my ears. Was I being controlled by this imposter's voice? My mind felt crystal clear, yet, despite having no real reason, I followed him still. As if I were his manservant. That diabolical voice's pull. It was said its strength came through sacrifice. The diva had been a musical genius from early childhood. The rumors reached Avalon, and they invited her to join as a singer, despite her young age.
There are two things wrong with that story.
The imposter quietly interjected. The diabolical voice and genius diva were red herrings. He said no more than that. He simply sang. Nothing mattered but the songs. That was his claim.
Why bother following a fella like me around?
He asked, innocently. Because I can't forget your voice. Listlessly, I thirsted for it. If I was under some influence, I would have to break it somehow. Killing him seemed the quickest option, but I found myself unable.
You'd blame my song? Come now.
He couldn't be the diva. Couldn't. But I found myself unwilling to accept reason. Was this the work of the diabolical voice of legend?
Ah, you're beginning to wonder, are you?
The imposter wore a smile.
Beginning to question whether the little diva was a man? That's quite the honor.
He quipped, clearly pleased. These days, no one doubts him. And so, he'd stopped bothering to make the claim. But it was fact. Kalem had been male all along. No one realized it at the time, but the young genius was no diva. Despite the high voice and slim frame, he had always been a boy. But everyone took him for a girl. For a time, he'd even believed it himself. He'd never found common ground with the boys his age, so his friends had naturally been girls. Even his needlework was excellent. He said it hit him hard when his body grew and his voice took on a masculine shade. It was someone else's voice to him. He would never sing the same. Unable to continue his job, he ran from Avalon. If the gods were real, why had they not made him as a woman? Or made him manly from the start, so he wouldn't have to hold these expectations? It's a simple thing to let go of what was never had. Loss only hurts because we know what was taken from us. After wandering for a few years, he learned of Grimm. They exist to fight the cruelty of an unfair world. A world made on the gods' whims. Terwin's words had resonated strongly with him. He began to sing again, in order to tell others of the unfairness of the world.
I finished my song.
As if to test it out, he began to sing his new composition. As I listened, I understood the second mistake in my story. It was as he'd said. The diabolical voice and genius diva were red herrings. There was no trick to Kalems' voice, no special power. It was song, and song alone that stirred the soul. It was so captivating, one felt bewitched. There was no spell, yet I was positively spellbound. I suppose I'd followed him simply hoping to hear more. In a way, you could still say he'd pulled my heartstrings. His song was over. He had lost his old voice, he said, but now had more to sing about. In loss, he had found something new.
I had my share of growing pains, but I'm all the wiser for them.
A song of the world's cruelty. But it was not a sad song. It urged the listener on, filling them with hope and purpose. The legendary diva had returned. Why? Words alone won't explain it. You'll know when you hear it.